My name is Astrid Tauber. You might know me as Unique Astrid Online, and I am here to introduce you to my crazy project idea that my fabulous friend Kai helped me out with. So, um, I somehow, somewhere got the idea to do an ocean dyed project or a snail dyed project. I looked into algae, I looked into sea urchins, looked into all kinds of weird dried supplement things, like all kinds of, because you can take algae as supplements apparently.
It was
Um,
a whole rabbit hole of things.
whole variety of things. That somehow all come from the seaweed, all kinds of stuff. Um, and landed back to the original of the Murex snail, the royal purple. And so this was the whole thing was let's get royal purple. So, one of the main issues about trying to make something that hasn't been produced or manufactured in like a couple dozen centuries is
Since
that,
3D.
yeah, just a while, um, is that there's no recipe, or at least no like
Nope.
solid down pat, nothing. Um, there's, I think, like one how it's made on YouTube, and that's like the extent of it. That's pretty vague and like 3 minutes long. And so, after lots of Googling, which is an amazing skill of mine, I can Google away. Um, we found Suzan Dekel, online, who sells snail glands and has a whole blog post. So she used a sodium hydrosulfide vat, which how she went from the old methods, which Kai will talk about. I'm not going to go there. Um, and somehow got it to a sodium hydrosulfide vat. Who knows how she figured that out? That's her genius. Um, and agreed to a video call and the whole nine. And so finally we go through all this in a dank basement. Kai will explain all that very thoroughly, and you'll see photos and videos. Um, that we had to go through all that. And once you have the dyed yarn, what do you even make that's like it's royal purple yarn? What do you do with royal purple yarn? Um, I don't think anybody ever finds themselves with like royal purple that like Julius Caesar would have had and be like, I'm gonna make something with this. Like I wasn't gonna make a scarf.
Yeah.
Um, was not the plan for that.
We need
And
something
so,
that captures the essence of this ancient purple.
right. It has to be equally royal as well as to the time and commitment
Hmm.
that we both put
Yeah.
into this because we put about an hour or a year of research into
Hmm.
this before Kai flew down to work with me on this project. And he's going to talk all about um, you're going to see photos, you're going to see all about the historical stuff, which I should mention, that's his specialty. Chemistry, natural dyes, historical research. I could find the recipe. I can read all the articles. I'm still not going to um fully get it and love it in the same way Kai is gonna love it. So that was Kai's job. Um, and so thank you for that, by the way. Um, and so after all that, we went through all this whole process in my hands, having royal purple yarn. What can you make that's even worth that after a year of research and then flying down and all this stuff, flying snails from Israel and it's or snail glands, I shouldn't say, not actual snails, parts of snails, that were dried. And to get to the point of having this yarn, what do you do that's even worth that yarn? I can't make just a scarf. I have to make something that's, and so I'm still working on that. I have too little time and too much brain. Um, but I decided to make a book and to weave the fabric, and then wrap, and cover the book, which is another hobby I've decided I'm going to take up. By the way, this is the spoiler for that. The two of us, will write the whole book, not a big book, just a little one, um, and cover it in the fabric of this project. And then we'll both get a copy because that way we can have it as a lovely little keepsake.
Yep.
And probably also shoes, because I can then walk around and feel like I'm on the same level as Julius Caesar because I
As
yeah, as one does. This is like a totally average experience is to make shoes and feel like you're levitating on royal purple while carrying a book. People are like, "Oh, your shoes are cute. Here's a book you can flip through." Um, which is a whole long way of saying that that is a work in progress because I haven't found a pattern or a draft yet or drafted anything that I also think is equal to the status of that. But anyway, yeah. So now I'm gonna hand it over to Kai to tell you all the nitty-gritty and all the fabulous things we did and research and some gross things too. Because that's what natural dyeing is sometimes.
Hello there. I'm here to sort of give you the historical background to the color Tyrian purple. Now, Tyrian purple gets its name from the city it was produced in, Tyre, which is where the modern country of Lebanon is located. Obviously, this dye came from snails, so it was most common to find the dye spaces or dye vat areas off the coast, off the shores, near all the ports. In the golden days of Tyrian purple, piles and piles of Murex snail shells would be on the shores, and throughout the ages, that is why this species of snail is almost extinct, because of the overproduction and overuse of this dye. Now, this purple was really and is extremely hard to produce. As you'll see in the video, only a couple grams dyes not that much fiber. So you would need hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of these snails just to dye maybe just a single robe of cloth. So this special dye is exclusively worn by wealthy, the very wealthy, or high royalty. And this is why we associate today the color purple with royalty and wealth. And that is also the reason why many flags around the world don't have the color purple in them, because it was extremely hard to produce. Now, as Astrid mentioned previously, the method for extracting this dye was a little bit disgusting. As was common practice throughout the early ages, throughout the medieval times or this period of dyeing, people used urine as a sort of mordant or binder or fixer, any sort of dyes that required vats or chemicals that were found in urine. So this was common practice. Urine was used to create the vat, and the chemicals found in urine is what helps to sort of deoxidize the vats that were used for dyeing. Correction. That statement is somewhat true, somewhat not. Urine was actually used to lower the pH of the dye vat, and this would help the whatever chemicals that were used to deoxidize the vat. This would help to function. So urine was not used to deoxidize the vat directly, but it did help in the process of deoxidization. And this is why, for the vat you'll see later on today, in this video, we used a hydrosulfide vat. Now, hydrosulfide is not exactly the same as urine. If you look it up, urine does not necessarily have a similar chemical structure to hydrosulfide. However, they both act as antioxidants, and this essentially means that it extracts the oxygen, it takes the oxygen out of the vat. And you want this because oxygen is what reacts with the dye to produce the color. Those of you who are familiar with indigo dyeing, this is exactly why we also use similar chemicals to deoxidize the vat, and then that is why the indigo vat is actually green, and when you take it out, the yarn turns blue. So as I mentioned, these large vats of dye were often placed by the shore, and they would smell like really badly. The stench was horrendous from any accounts that we have, and from now, when we were doing experiment, the scent alone was horrific. I truly tell you, it was horrific. Thankfully, we were wearing masks, obviously, to protect ourselves from the chemicals, but also partly because of the absolute stench that was coming from the dye. And it's also partly This is also partly due to the fact that the dye actually comes from the glands of a snail. The essential ingredient for Tyrian purple is the glands of the Murex trunculus snail. Now, this part of the snail glands is essentially dried up and then crushed, and that is what is used for the dye. And like I mentioned earlier, this is the reason why it took so much to dye just a tiny bit of material, because these snails were so tiny and only so little dye can be produced from a handful of snails even. And that's why me and Astrid were so lucky and so happy to find Suzan Dekel online, because it was so hard to acquire these snails and even a usable amount of the glands to be able to actually produce usable dye to dye whatever we wanted to. Now, as you'll see later on, we did end up using more fiber than our dye could take, and that did somewhat affect our results, as you'll see later. This was an awesome project to do, and we are so excited to finally be able to share this with you. And without further ado, let's get on to it. Alright, so it is 3 a.m. in the morning, and we have just put everything to soak in water so that we can dye everything tomorrow. Alright, good morning. So we have in the bucket all the silk, wool, and some targi. We also threw in there a sample of cotton and some angora fiber. We threw all things in the bucket, and so we have it's all pre-soaked from last night at 3 a.m. in the morning. And then here we have our kit that has our actual Murex. It is from Suzan Dekel, .com, and we have a pestle mortar and our heat plate and pot. So let's get started.
Oh, should we be measuring 2 liters?
So these two pots are both filled to approximately 4 liters. So we're going to do 2 batches. I only filled both so that we can get both even, but we are going to be doing 1 batch at a time. Our next step was to mix in soda ash with hot water to dissolve it, and then in a pestle mortar we ground up the Murex glands with some more soda ash.
I need water.
There's definitely purple in there.
I can't smell it.
After we added the Murex and soda ash from the pestle mortar into the water, we also added in the soda ash and water mixture we stirred up previously, and then once those two were sort of mixed in the pot, we added in our sodium hydrosulfide. Again, this was helped to shift the pH and not necessarily deoxidize the actual vat in itself. This is just sort of, the deoxidization is just a chemical reaction of the shifting of the pH. And as you'll see, this results in a yellow vat, and like indigo, it will oxidize from that yellow to a purple, or like indigo, from green to blue. Well, that is at pH 11.
Between 10 and 12. This is
the cotton.
Ah, yeah, I was wondering why it was all speckly. Well, let's put that in at the end.
Alright, so we'll do
So whatever vat has the color and the portion you want.
Alright, so let's do silk first.
This needs to be unchained, yes?
Yes. We want to be everything untwisted and unchained, just so that we can not, because if we leave everything chained, then it's gonna have like blockage.
Do you want me to put earbuds in for that? Or I can just figure out the coloring, and then we can gauge how much time the weft skeins are actually spending in the vat, so that we get a nice, both snail colored, but not the same level
color.
of,
Yeah, alright. Because they'll soak up different amounts of dye as well, so.
Yes, they will.
Alright, so we have everything inside of this bucket. We are going to do wool first in the first batch because we want to let the silk soak a little bit longer because the water didn't penetrate all the way through the skein. So once we realized that, we put it in a separate bucket and opened all the skeins up. So we're just going to do wool first because that soaked up all the water perfectly fine.
It's just so light and just like warp.
So we're going to put that now.
Once we turn the lights off.
Oh yeah. Once the fiber was put in the pot, we let it sit for around 20-ish minutes, and the reason for the paper towel will be explained in the next clips. Okay, so we're going to do this in the dark because to get purple, you cannot be exposing the color to light. So apologies for the darkness, but we just want the best results for the yarn and the purple because that's the point of this dye.
Colander.
Okay, so it has been 15-20 minutes.
20.
And so we're going to turn the lights off and take the yarn out of the dye pot.
Ready?
Yep. And here.
Hi. Hi, future Kai.
Oh, it smells.
It's still very yellow. Shouldn't you squeeze it out under there so you don't get water? My job is the flashlight holder. That is my official duty as... Oh, it is oxidizing.
Okay, so it is turning. Oh, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is turning some shade of something.
Oh.
It is very purple in there. We have
There's
lots
chunks of... Oh, boy.
That's not.
That's purple. It's weird that some of it is purple, which I know it's where the dye touched, and some of it is bright yellow. On the next batch, we might...
Now, Astrid mentioned earlier in the intro that we did this in the dark, and this is partly because the purple dye, or the dye itself, will react and will not work if it is exposed to light. And if the dye is exposed to light, it will not function as it should. And if it doesn't function, you will not get the purple dye that you're looking for. And this is because in the chemical compound of this dye, there are two molecules. There are the red molecules and there are the blue molecules. If exposed to sunlight, the red molecules inside of the dye will not react well and will not stay on and attach itself to whatever you're dyeing. So you want to keep this darkness so that the red molecules in the dye don't malfunction, if you will, so that they don't I guess burn out. I don't actually know the chemical explanation for it. Any information I will find, I will certainly link in the description below. Another thing you'll see is that we used two different fibers. We used wool and we used silk. Now the silk, as you see, is blue. This is because silk only reacts and will only absorb the blue molecules in the dye, and the wool will take up the red molecules in the dye. For that reason, when we finished the wool in its fat, we put the silk in the excess dye because it will use up the blue molecules that the wool left behind after it finished absorbing the majority of the red dye molecules. So that is a little explanation, a little science for you, and let's get back to the video. Alright, so we let this to sit for another 10 minutes, and I think we're getting better results. You guys can't really see it in the camera, but it definitely soaked up more dye, and I think soaking it for longer definitely helped. So we are going to let this sit in the dark and oxidize, and we will get back to you, and hopefully we'll have more purple. Okay, so this is the third dip. Definitely have more blue, so I think we are looking pretty good. I think we'll definitely see maybe a possibly third, fourth dip, but I think we'll just let it sit and oxidize, and we'll see what happens.
So, we've done several dips of this. This is 3 dips, yeah?
4.
Really?
3.
3. First one, 20 minutes as per the instructions. Second one, 13 minutes. Fourth one, 15 minutes. And it's had time to oxidize. It's just sort of a grayish purple, which I'm gonna guess is because we had more weight of fiber than we probably should have. But it's still purple, so it counts. We would have had to spend like $9,000 on snails in order for the appropriate weight.
Yeah.
So what we've done here is we've taken the same vat and taken the silk wefts, and that way they can just absorb whatever is left in there, and we're just gonna leave it for, maybe overnight, maybe till the end of today, we don't know. Just a significant amount of time, probably longer than we should, so that it can get rid of everything that's left, or take up everything that's left. And when the yarn's done, if it's like the faintest blue ever, we can use the second vat and treat it in the second vat. But that is at least going to take care of this vat, which is very yellow looking, but that is all the silk weft, which I wanted to be in contrast to the warp, so it'll be, it's like leftovers basically, so it won't take up the full amount of color, which is somehow perfect for what we need. So it'll probably just be like a really faint gray, but that's great. We can fix it on the second vat.
Yep. All right. All right, so we're going to start with the second vat. We've let this vat just kind of sit in the back, and we have the water, or the wool warp, just sitting in its water. So we're gonna do the whole process all over again, and we'll be back with actual yarn soon. Taking a break from processing, here's how the purple turned out from yesterday. Alright, we let the wool sit overnight, and as you kind of can see in the camera, it is fully oxidized. There's definitely more purple in person, so hopefully we can capture the real purple later in the video when we wash it and rinse it. But I think we are pretty satisfied with the results, so we will get to be finishing. Here is the blue that we threw in as a sort of mop from yesterday, and it's kind of faint, so we did end up using the second vat.
That's pretty. Let me separate out the two.
The dye definitely looks very blue.
Yeah, it does. Look at that though. It's nice looking.
Once we were finished with the vat, we took the yarns to the sink to wash out and rinse out any excess dye, and this is what the yarns looked like after they were washed. So, even though in the pictures the colors are very vibrant, and me and Ashford were really hoping that's how the dyes would stay, unfortunately, as we did leave them to dry out in the sun and whatnot, the colors did fade a little bit. So unfortunately the purple did turn a little more gray than we would have liked to, and the blue is very pale, but it's still there. It just because of we did use a lot more fiber content than the dye was made for. So I think that's what mostly played a part of it, and also maybe some of the sunlight exposure also played with it because of the UV exposure making chemical reactions, or the rays interacting with the color molecules in the pigment definitely could have played a role. Unfortunately, I couldn't find very much information on how light affects the dye itself, but if I do find any in the future, I will definitely link any sources in the description below. But overall, this project was really fun to do. We still got absolutely stunning yarn. It was a great experience. And then we'd also like to thank Public Works in South Carolina for allowing us to do snail dyeing shenanigans in their basement. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was really fun to make, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!